This is the 21st show. I'm Brian Mackey. Governor J.B. Pritzker's State of the State and budget address this week on Wednesday had, as you would expect, policy and financial priorities as a main focus. But he ended his speech with a parallel from history on the actions of President Trump and his administration.
It took the Nazis 1 month, 3 weeks, 2 days, 8 hours, and 40 minutes to dismantle a constitutional republic. And all I'm saying is that when the 5-alarm fire starts to burn, every good person better be ready to man a post with a bucket of water if you want to stop it from raging out of control.
Striking comments, especially as a lot of Democrats are still very carefully calibrating their responses to the Trump administration, which, as of yesterday, is 1 month in, 47 months to go. Here to talk about Pritzker's remarks and how people have received it is Dave McKinney, government and politics reporter for WBEZ in Chicago. Dave, welcome back to the 21st show.
Brian, good morning.
So the question Pritzker asked a few times during that speech was, what comes next? What is it about Trump and his administration that led Pritzker to make that pretty striking comparison to the Nazis?
Well, I mean, the 4 weeks of Trump's presidency so far have, seen him attempt to consolidate power in ways that, essentially go around Congress, by eliminating agencies, consolidating power, expanding power. And then we've seen migrants that he says were brought into this country illegally, housed at Gitmo in Cuba. So, I mean, you've seen a variety of things that to the governor, I think, created alarm bells. And I think that's what the purpose of his, speech was, and drawing that in there, just to demonstrate that there, in his mind, there are parallels.
And maybe you can remind us a little about Pritzker's background, his sort of cultural background, ethnic background, if you will, and how that came up. He invoked that in his speech.
He did. I mean, of course, Governor Pritzker is Jewish, and he was a leading fundraiser and kind of idea person behind the creation of the Illinois Holocaust Museum in Skokie. He made a point in the speech of saying that he probably through that work had gotten to know more Holocaust survivors than probably anyone in the House chambers the day he delivered his speech. So, I mean, he's greatly attuned to what went on during the Holocaust. He's a student of it. And to him, it was really important to put, both his spirit and his money behind the creation of a museum in Illinois to memorialize that.
Yeah. And yet, on the other hand, there is a way, and this is not an original idea to me, but I heard somebody say it, I thought very succinctly, when you take a conversation about politics and invoke the Nazis, it has a way of sort of shutting down dialogue. What was the reaction that we heard from Republicans to this?
Well, I mean, of course, Republicans, there were boos during this segment of the speech. A few of the members, I believe, of the Freedom Caucus got up and left the chamber. And afterwards, folks like State Senator Chapin Rose spoke to reporters, and he called the governor's focus on this unnecessarily divisive, and Chapin Rose's words, flat out disgusting. He called Pritzker a divider off these speeches or off the speech, and he claimed that this was a bit of evidence that Pritzker has his eye on a bigger political prize than Illinois. Of course, he's been mentioned as a potential 2028 presidential contender. So that was the feedback from Republicans.
Yeah, we have another little clip here we can use to sort of give a flavor of some of the other things that Governor Pritzker had to say about the Trump administration in Washington. This is him focusing a little more on Republican policy.
I know it's in fashion at the federal level right now to just indiscriminately slash school funding, healthcare coverage, support for farmers, and veterans services. They say they're doing it to eliminate inefficiencies. But only an idiot would think that we should eliminate emergency response in a natural disaster, education and healthcare for disabled children, gang crime investigations, clean air and water programs, monitoring of nursing home abuse, nuclear reactor regulation, and cancer research.
Dave, we've heard a lot of state of the state addresses over the years. A few more than me. Everyone from Rod Blagojevich calling the Illinois State Board of Education a Soviet-style bureaucracy to now invoking the Nazis. How do you think of this in the context of that history of that long lineage of Illinois governors?
Well, I mean, these speeches are generally all about a governor laying out their budget priorities. And, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that, budgets can seem like they're really kind of boring types of things, but what they really are these kind of living statements about a politician's priorities and the way they want to spend money. And so I think going into this speech, people naturally thought that the focus would be on, our revenues up, our revenues down, what are we going to spend the money on? And he spent the first, you know, 30 minutes of his 36-minute speech focused on all of that. And then the final 6 minutes, which is a lot of real estate if you're writing a speech, he spent those last 6 minutes drawing these really striking comparisons between what is happening under the Trump administration and what happened in the early days during the rise of Nazi Germany. I don't think any of us have ever heard of anything like that in watching these speeches. And I think the Nazi reference, it's a powerful one. And I think back of during the speech there, you didn't play a clip of it, but he also invoked memories of the Nazi or the attempted Nazi march in the late 1970s in Skokie. At that point, there were still a large number of Holocaust survivors living in Skokie. And it was a case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was a big free speech case. And, we forget about that history. So many of the people that were part of that, no longer are with us. I mean, Rahm Emanuel, for example, he was a teenager and he was a counter demonstrator during some of those protests back then. But it's something we lose sight of. And I think Pritzker dug deep into history to make what he thought was a very important point here.
Yeah. To quote the Blues Brothers, Illinois Nazis. I hate Illinois Nazis.
I hate Illinois Nazis. Yeah, I think you can buy T-shirts with that on it. I was online looking the other day.
Yeah, maybe in vogue again. Dave, just about 30 seconds left. Pritzker's going out there in a way a lot of Democrats are not nationally, right?
He is. And, the evidence that this resonated beyond the chambers of the Illinois State House was that, that night, Rachel Maddow on MSNBC with 2 million viewers, she ran about 3 minutes of this speech at the very top of her show. So this message resonated not just here in Illinois and created attention, but it got a national platform as well. So I think, for a governor who's eyeing a third term and possibly a presidential run, that's really valuable for his own purposes too.
Dave McKinney, WBEZ government and politics reporter in Chicago. Great to talk to you as always.
Brian, a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
It's the 21st show. I'm Brian Mackey. Let's roll right through the national part of our weekly political roundtable with Linda Kenyon, Illinois Public Media's Washington correspondent. Linda, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be back.
In order to make our schedules meet, listeners, I should say we talked with Linda Thursday evening. So if something crazy happens Friday morning, another day in this administration, then that's why we're not talking about it now. But Linda, let's start with Kash Patel, who the Senate officially confirmed Thursday to be director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. All the Senate Democrats voted against him, as did Republican Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. But that wasn't enough to block it. His nomination went through 51-49. What are you looking for to happen now as far as the FBI is concerned?
Well, as head of the FBI, he's going to be atop the nation's top federal law enforcement agency. And there was a lot of concern from Democrats, at least, and of course, the two Republicans, Senator Collins and Senator Murkowski, about his qualifications and concerns about whether he would be doing the job of an FBI director in its traditional sense, or if he would, in fact, just be doing Donald Trump's bidding Uh, as he had said before the election, during the campaign, Patel, a very, very strong supporter of Donald Trump, echoing a lot of Trump's talking points about political retribution and going after those who Trump would felt had wronged him in the political arena. And so this was another reason for major concerns. And it turns out that during his confirmation hearing, as is the case with most cabinet members, most appointees during confirmation hearings, is they tend to temper their past statements or try and qualify their past statements. And that is what he did during his confirmation hearing. So I've seen it actually happen pretty much every single Supreme Court justice confirmation process as well. So this is how Kash Patel did comport himself during his confirmation hearing process. And so will he go back to his original fiery rhetoric? The collective opinion among his opponents are yes, he will do exactly what he said he was going to do before the confirmation process, and he will be exactly who he has been both before, during, and after the confirmation process.
And just to be clear, not just rhetoric, right? He has a literal enemies list in a book that he
Yes,
came out with.
yes.
He's promoted conspiracy theories. He even wrote a kid's book, Thinly Veiled. Some of the characters were King Donald, Hillary Queenton, Kamalalala, and he refers to the FBI in this book as slug stables in a shadowy corner of the castle. I mean, this is I feel like we've said this so many times now, but this is a remarkable departure from the type of person normally tapped to lead an agency like the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Well, to be fair, most of the nominees who have now been confirmed, pretty much everyone, with the exception of Matt Gaetz, who withdrew from consideration as Attorney General, before he even had a confirmation hearing. They have all the other cabinet nominees have been confirmed, despite a lot of outspoken concerns that were expressed by a very small number of Republicans, but pretty much every Democrat, with a couple of exceptions. And so, yes, he's very controversial, but Donald Trump did uh, bill himself as a disruptor, and so he wants people to surround him who would also be in that vein, also would be disruptors. And so Kash Patel does fit the bill. But the most important qualification, it seems, and this should come as no surprise because we saw this during Trump's first term, is that Trump is very, very much supportive of those who support him. He demands loyalty. It may be a one-way street in many instances, but he demands loyalty. And Kash Patel is about as loyal as you can come.
Well, one other interesting note, speaking of the Senate this week, is that Mitch McConnell, who is a longtime Senate Republican leader, although he gave that up recently, announced he will not be seeking another term next year. He's been serving as a senator since 1985, before I
Yeah.
would guess some people listening to us were born. At this stage, with everything else that's going on, what is his legacy shaping up to be?
You know, he was always respected as a brilliant tactician. He led the Republicans both as the majority leader and as the minority leader, depending upon how the elections had played out. He was one of the longest serving, if not the longest serving, party leader in the US Senate. And he was very, very instrumental in advancing the Republican agenda. And again, he did have a reputation as being a brilliant political tactician. He may have met his match when the Senate's top Democrat was Senator Harry Reid of Nevada. The two of them could really duke it out in the weeds and really use procedure to their advantage like no one had probably done before the two of them. They were very good opponents, but very cordial to each other, with a couple of rare exceptions, but for the most part, McConnell did have quite the reputation. In recent years, he has been fading. He's had some health issues. He has both opposed and supported Donald Trump alternately, sometimes in the same day. He has spoken out since he knew he was not going to be running for reelection, he has spoken out very recently against a lot of Donald Trump's policies and actions. He, however, did not vote for impeachment of Donald Trump, not the first time, not the second time, saying that the impeachment was really something that belonged in the courts, and that it should be up to the courts to decide. And the courts did decide, and the Supreme Court in general said that presidents can do whatever essentially they want if it's part of official White House presidential business. And we're seeing a lot of that playing out now. So there are some critics of Mitch McConnell who say his criticisms of the Trump administration right now and his standing on the sidelines of the Republican Party, which he once commanded, is too little, too late.
Yeah. I'm reminded that after, as he was not impeaching or voting to impeach Trump, he did say unequivocally, there is no question, this is a quote, there is no question that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of that day being
Right,
January 6th.
right, right.
But he was not willing to, and I think arguably for whatever, whether people think what Trump is doing is good or bad, McConnell has a lot of responsibility for ushering him back onto the national stage, or at least
He
allowing
does.
that to
And I will
happen.
point out that he was asked who he would vote for after those very same words that you just quoted. And he said, well, it should come as no surprise that I'm a Republican and I will vote for Donald Trump.
Linda Kenyon, thank you as always for sharing your reporting with us.
Well, thank you.
This is the 21st show. More to come after a break. Stay with us.